One of the most important questions in trying to determine when the universe was created according to the Bible is the question, what do the 6 days of creation mean in Genesis 1? Welcome to the 12th video in the series about the book, The Creator Revealed. And in this video we look at chapter 11, the days of Genesis. The Hebrew word translated day is the word yom, and just like the English word day, the word yom can have lots of meanings. It can mean daylight or a period of time or 24 hours. When I say in George Washington's day, the colonists fought the Revolutionary War, the word day means a long period of time. And how do I know that? We use the same rules of interpretation that we talked about in the last video. You look at the literary and cultural context and idioms of the day. So when we try to determine what the word day means in Genesis 1, let's first look at the context. The Hebrew word yom is used 16 times in Genesis 1 and 2. 9 of those times it refers to the 6 days of creation, but the other 7 times it never means 24 hours. It means daylight or a long period of time. So what we see is that the writer can certainly use the Hebrew word to mean a long period of time. Sometimes those who think that the word yom in Genesis 1 doesn't mean a long period of time will point to 3 reasons why. The first is they say that when the word yom is used with an ordinal, like the number 1 or 2 or 3, it always means 24 hours. But it doesn't. If you compare Hosea 6, 1 and 2 and Zechariah 14, 6 through 8, you will see that the same Hebrew phrase is used 1 day or 2 days, and it doesn't mean 24 hours. It means a long period of time. Another reason why some people think the days of Genesis have to mean 24 hours is because of the term evening and morning. But that's a Hebrew idiom that can mean beginning and ending. It doesn't mean necessarily a literal evening and morning. In fact, I find it interesting that out of everything written in the Bible, tradition tells us that Moses wrote the first 5 books, including Genesis. But Moses also wrote Psalm 90. And if you look at Psalm 90, verses 4 through 6, Moses uses that same idiom, evening and morning, to mean the beginning and ending of a human life. It doesn't mean a 24-hour day. He's talking about how short life is, and he says, like grass springs up in the morning and dies in the evening, that's what life is like. But grass doesn't literally spring up in the morning and die in the evening. It's a Hebrew idiom that means beginning and ending. So each of the 6 days of creation had a beginning and an ending. If you look in the text, you'll notice the 7th day doesn't have an evening and a morning, because the 7th day was God's day of rest. God is still resting from all his creative works he did in the first 6 days. So that 7th day doesn't have a beginning and ending. Finally, some people say that the word yom has to mean 24 hours because Exodus 20 says, in the same way that God created the heavens and earth in 6 days and rested the 7th, we're supposed to rest on the 7th day. But there's an analogy there. If you look at Exodus 23 verses 10 to 12, the same analogy is used for 6 years of working the land and cultivating the land and 1 year of resting the land. So by saying that God created the universe in 6 days and rested in the 7th day, it doesn't mean they were necessarily 6 24-hour days and 1 7th 24-hour day, because the same analogy is used for 6 years of planting and 1 year of resting. When you read the text of Genesis 1 in Hebrew, it becomes clear that the author is not talking about 24-hour days. Gleason Archer was one of the best Hebrew scholars of the 20th century, and in his book, A Survey of Old Testament Introduction, he says that in his opinion, there is no way that the author could actually mean those days to be 24 hours. So what we see when we look at the context and the culture and the language and the idioms of ancient Hebrew is that the days of Genesis, those 6 days of creation, are not necessarily 24 hours. In fact, there are many hints that they're long periods of time. And that's what I believe the text is telling us, that God created the universe in 6 long periods of time, and since he created it, he has been resting for a long period of time. We'll look at the ramifications of that and how to interpret and understand them, the 6 days of creation, in our next video.